Hello everyone, welcome back to our Spark tutorial series. Today we are going to explore two fundamental operations, select and drop in Spark. These functions are essential for manipulating your data and selecting the columns you need and dropping the columns you don't need for analysis. So let's start with select. The select function in Spark allows you to choose specific columns from your data frame and create a new data frame with those columns. The select in Spark is very similar to select in SQL. Let us try to write some code so that it's very easy to understand. So before we write anything, I have created an object called select on drop and initiated a main and a Spark session variable inside the main, and my code ends with spark.stop to stop the Spark session. And anything I write in Spark will go in between these two lines. I would like to create a data frame first. So for creating a data frame, I will add some data. My data is this basically. So it has 5 rows and 6 columns. It is basically an employee data. For this data, I would like to also include columns. My columns are ID, name, age, department, salary, and join date. So for creating a data frame using this data and these columns for the data, we just use Spark's inbuilt create data frame function. So I'll create this data frame called employee df and I'll call spark dot create data frame providing the data followed by 2df function and I'll give the columns. So let's print this data frame. Data frame can be printed using df dot show function where df is a data frame. So the data frame is as what we expected. So it has 5 rows and 6 columns: ID, name, age, department, salary, and join date. So now let us try to use select function in the data frame. From the employee df, I would like to select 2 columns. So columns can be referenced using col function, and I'll provide the column name as ID and the other column name is name. And for using this call function, we need to import we need to import arg.apache spark SQL functions dot call. So I would like to read this data frame into another data frame called employee ID and name, employee ID and name df. And now let us print this employee ID and name df using data frame dot show function. So you can see that our original data frame has 6 columns, whereas our new data frame, which is employee ID and name, contains only 2 columns. These 2 columns are because we are only selecting these 2 columns from the employee data frame. So the select is not an in place operation, meaning the employee data frame, even after selecting these 2 columns, will remain the same. We have selected these 2 columns, we read into a different data frame called employee ID and name df, but the underlying data frame, which is employee df, will remain the same. So let us try to print this employee df once again after we have executed the select. So you can see that the initial data frame is having 6 columns and the second data frame with selected columns has only 2 columns as we selected only 2 columns, and the employee df that we printed again, it has the same 6 columns, meaning the underlying data frame, which is the employee data frame, is not being affected due to the select function. I have an use case where I would like to find out the age next year for all the employees. We can use the same select function and create a new column from the existing column. So I'll call this employee age next year df and I'll use my employee data frame and select. I want to have ID column and name column as it is, but for this age column I would like to add it with one and call this new column as next year age. So as function in Spark will basically help us to alias the new column name. So the column age will be added with 1 and the new column will be called next year age. And if we print this data frame using dataframe.show, so we can see that we got the employee age, employee next year age. So whereas John Doe's age this year is 30 and the next year age is 31, which is based on the expression that we have provided. So meaning inside the Spark select, we can also pass expressions and manipulate the existing columns. So now let's explore the drop function in Spark. So the select column basically helps us to select the columns, whereas the drop function will help us to drop any existing columns from the given data frame. Let's say that we have an employee DF and I would like to remove this salary column from the employee DF. That can be done using employee df dot drop function, and I'll provide this salary column. So this will be my new data frame with salary removed from the employee data frame. I would like to read this into a separate data frame, employee df without salary. And now let us print this data frame. So we have used drop function to drop a column from the employee df and we are dropping salary. So you can see that it has 5 columns: ID, name, age, department, and join date, and the salary column is missing. Now I also don't want this column. We can also remove multiple columns within the same drop statement. So the column department is also removed from this data frame. And there is one more thing. We can use multiple functions on top of a data frame in a single line at the same time. Let us say I want to select a few columns from a data frame and then drop one or more columns from the result data frame. We can do that in a single line. Let me read this into select on drop df. I will use employee df and select columns ID, name, department, age plus 1 as next year age. So in this data frame, I have selected ID, name, department, and aggregate and calculated this next year age, and I also selected age. But I only want next year age. I don't want the current age. So we can just use dot drop function and provide age column within the same statement, so that initially the select will select all these columns and then the drop will drop the age column, so that we should only see ID, name, department and next year age in this select on drop df. So this is just a hypothetical scenario, so we can just ignore selecting age here if we don't want age column. We are just testing out multiple functions within this same line. If we print this data frame, we should see ID, name, department and next year age, and we don't see the age column and the other columns from the employee data frame. So this is how we use select and drop functions in data frame. So select and drop are fundamental operations for working with data frames in Spark. I hope this explanation was helpful. If you have any questions, please comment out your questions and I'll respond to that. And if you like this video, hit on like button, and for more such videos, subscribe to this channel.